what we're not going to do is allow Labour to cover up what happened by pretending that their dirty dealings are all about national security. They're not.
We've heard the Labour Cabinet Minister Steve Reid tell us that choosing Peter Mandelson to be ambassador to the United States was a rational decision at the time, given what was known.
And we've heard some depressed-sounding Labour backbenchers. One of them is Carl Turner, who knows Keir Starmer pretty well. He told us the mood in the party was dire and MPs had been angrier than he'd seen them in 16 years. He said if Starmer's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, stayed in post, then the Prime Minister would really be up against it.
Well, we can talk now to the Leader of the Opposition, Conservative Leader Kemi Badenoch. Good morning.
Good morning.
What for you is the biggest unanswered question the Prime Minister now faces this morning?
There's so many unanswered questions. Why he chose to allow this to escalate to this point, how he ever thought that Mandelson would be suitable, why Morgan McSweeney is still in the role, why he thought he should try to cover up the release of documents, trying to amend our humble address, that parliamentary mechanism, which MPs eventually supported me on so that we could see the documents. There's so many unanswered questions.
And we'll come back to some of those about the vetting process, but I'm interested in your remarks there about Morgan McSweeney. I take from that you believe that it should no longer be the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff.
Well, that's a judgment for the Prime Minister to make, but as we know, he has very bad judgment. Morgan McSweeney is a protege of Peter Mandelson. He is the one who pushed through that appointment. He would have seen all the security vetting and clearly didn't care. This is a man who decides which person gets to be in cabinet, which person gets to be kicked out. You know, Peter Kyle is business secretary, another friend of Peter Mandelson. They removed the person who was there before. Lots of friends and relatives of the people in high places in Labour getting jobs, others not. I think that it's extraordinary that Morgan McSweeney is still in a role.
But the power ultimately rests with the Prime Minister, the decision-making power, and much beyond that too. Should he consider his position this morning?
Well, I think we should start with Morgan McSweeney in terms of whose head should roll, but the Prime Minister has many more questions to answer, and that is why this release of the documents is so significant. One of the things that I was able to get him to do was admit that he knew about all of this continuing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein when he had been speaking as if he didn't know. That's one of the things that's making Labour MPs so furious. The fact that he was using weasel words to cover up, and it was only because those documents were coming out that he knew that he was stuck and he just had to come clean. I think that is a key indicator of the sort of judgment of the man who is running our country. If he's going, he should be going for what he's done with his terrible budget, welfare payments, the unemployment figures. Yeah. It should be all of that and this.
But you're stopping short at the moment of calling for his resignation. Is it legitimate now to ask about the vetting process for other senior appointments, such as Jonathan Powell, the National Security Advisor?
I think so, yes. Jonathan Powell is one of the people who's been advising the Prime Minister very badly on the Chagos Islands. We now have this disgraceful deal where we're giving away territory we own and paying £35 billion for the privilege for no benefit whatsoever. It's nuts. The only people who benefit are Russia and China. Jonathan Powell has been pushing for this, as has Lord Hermer. The entire class is rotten. The entire class is rotten. There are many more questions to be answered, and I think the release of these papers is going to show us so much more.
Some of those papers that you referenced there, the type and the amount of information you're calling for, some say it goes too far, it poses a risk. What is your response to that?
Well, Parliament has voted that these papers should go to the Intelligence and Security Committee. I think that this is the right place. Many of those documents will not pose a risk. But what we're not going to do is allow Labour to cover up what happened by pretending that their dirty dealings are all about national security. They're not. And we should stop playing this game of pretending that they are.
Some of this happened over WhatsApp. That is some of the communication that you are requesting be made public. What's your party's policy on the use of WhatsApp when it comes to talking about things like donations, policy development? What's your policy on that?
Well, if you're in government, then you shouldn't be using WhatsApp to do those things. People may ask casual questions, but you shouldn't be carrying out serious decisions over WhatsApp. It's a different thing when you're carrying out your politics. That's a different matter. But government business should not be done over WhatsApp. It should be done on proper government communications where you can keep accurate records and keep track.
Do you have disappearing messages turned on your own WhatsApp?
Well, if I didn't, my phone would be full. The amount of messages I get, often from people I don't know.
Do you think that poses a bit of a question when it comes to thinking about some of these questions around compliance, around making sure that there is transparency? I take the point that you are in opposition at the moment, but as a standard, to have disappearing messages on your WhatsApp, do you think that's up to scratch?
Honestly, I think all of this is a distraction. Disappearing messages are on WhatsApp for all sorts of different reasons. WhatsApp is for personal use. Don't use WhatsApp for government business and the question doesn't arise. That's the key thing.
And are you confident that all the advice you receive from business leaders, from donors, from people who advise you on your policy is properly declared? Is it all on record?
Well, what exactly are we talking about here? I talk to lots of people all the time. Pretty much everybody I speak to is a business person. Every single day I knock on a door and I speak to business people. That's not what we're talking about here. What we saw Peter Mandelson doing was forwarding government emails, allowing Jeffrey Epstein to be able to make decisions that the markets were not aware of and to profit from it. That's very different from somebody telling me, "Oh, Kemi, I think you need to cut corporation tax."
Well, I wonder whether it prompts some of these questions to be asked, because part of this is about how we are in this situation in the first place. And the Prime Minister is coming out today and saying it's because Peter Mandelson lied. While other people say, well, hang on a minute, that's what the vetting process is there to do. I suppose some of these questions are about how we conduct government policy and how we conduct ourselves in public life.
Kate, you're overcomplicating this. The vetting process was fine. It found that Peter Mandelson was not suitable and they appointed him anyway. This is about the Prime Minister's judgment. Going into all of the details of, well, should we never speak to businessmen anymore and should we have disappearing messages on WhatsApp? All of that is a distraction. The Prime Minister had a simple job to do. Use his judgment, and he used it badly. That means that his judgment is being called into question on every other thing that he is doing. That's why he's in trouble. That's what we should focus on.
One of the people who's been quite quiet when it comes to commenting on this story is Nigel Farage. Why do you think he has been less keen to speak up this time round?
Well, I'm sure many of his associates, I think even his name may be mentioned in the Epstein files. I don't know why he's not speaking. I do know that he is not a serious politician. When the Labour Party is in trouble, Nigel Farage has often created news to be helpful to them. I think he cannot see any way for him to show what kind of politician he is in a positive light. That's probably why. But I'm speculating. I'm interested in what I can do to hold the government to account effectively. I'm the leader of the opposition. Ed Davies made some comments. I think those are questions really for Nigel Farage himself.
OK, well, let's talk about that then, about holding people to account. One of your MPs, Alicia Cairns, last night read out some of the exchanges between Peter Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein. They were very difficult to hear. We played them on the programme earlier on this morning. They do demean women. Is there a risk here that we're treating those women and what happened to them as a second-order issue because they're not front and centre of this current conversation? Powerful men are instead still.
I don't think that that's quite right. There should be criminal investigations for people who have been found to commit crimes. Those crimes were not committed in our country as far as I can tell. I think that some of the women may have been British citizens. I think that needs to be looked into. But we have to deal with what is in front of us rather than choose which issues we want to deal with. And right now, the biggest issue is that the Prime Minister appointed somebody who was a close acquaintance of a convicted paedophile and continued maintaining that relationship long after the conviction. That is the issue at hand. That is what should concern us.
The Prime Minister has a commitment to halving violence against women and girls. Some have suggested that is no longer credible in this context. Do you agree with him?
Well, one of the things which I think I did ask him, not yesterday but previously, was that if he really cared about violence against women and girls, he's got a funny way of showing it. It's not just with this case. It's with the odd position where he couldn't define what a woman was. It was with the delay in getting a national inquiry on grooming gangs. I mean, again and again and again, he's shown that it is something that he pays lip service to, but doesn't actually seriously deal with. I think even the women in the Labour Party have started spotting this.
Do you think he's got a blind spot on this issue?
That's for him to say. He's got blind spots on all sorts of issues. I am calling into question the man's judgment on a whole range of issues. I don't think we should narrow it down to just one specific thing. This is about Keir Starmer and his bad judgment over the last 18 months, not just on this scandal.
And yet you're not calling for him to leave.
I think that when you call for a prime minister to leave, you need more evidence, an open and shut case. Right now, his backbenchers need to decide whether they want him to represent them. I'm perfectly happy to deal with whoever is the Labour leader. They're all as bad as each other in different ways. I don't think that Labour is offering any answers for our country. We have been coming up with an alternative plan. We had lots of mistakes made when we were in government. I've acknowledged that. It was absolutely not perfect, but we don't pretend that it was all fine. They came in pretending to be holier than thou, pretending to be whiter than white, that they were going to be a government of integrity and standards, that they were better than everybody else, and now they're being shown to be a lot worse.
One of the alternatives for the US ambassador role was George Osborne. Do you believe that he would have been a better appointment?
Well, I haven't vetted George Osborne, so I'm not going to do is speculate on particular individuals. That's not my job. I think that when you have a role like the ambassador to Washington, you need to make sure that you get the very best people. People put their names forward. You carry out due diligence, due process. You have a meritocratic appointment and let the best person win.
Okay.
It's not for me to pick out names and say, well, this person would have been better or that.
And
person
can you guarantee for any appointments that you make to very senior roles, if you are to become the next Prime Minister, that they would not be these kinds of political appointments that circumvent the proper vetting system, that allow Prime Ministers to put people into roles without going through the standard process first? Can you guarantee that you would never do that?
But that's not what's happened. This isn't about the political appointment. This is about judgment, that the vetting had been done, information came through, and the appointment was still made anyway. I would not do that.
So you wouldn't do what happened in this case? Keir Starmer did announce the appointment. He had only received a very limited amount of information, and the formal deep vetting was done after the appointment was announced. I'm saying you wouldn't do it in that way.
No, you should go through a process in the proper way. For a role as senior as that, you should not leave things to be a hostage to fortune. Absolutely not.
Can I ask you finally, Kemi Badenoch, you did an interview last night on a slightly different note, which was televised, and in the back of the room was a mouse running around.
Yes.
Have you managed to rid your office of rodents?
I did say that Nigel Farage was doing my spring cleaning. Sadly, he hasn't been thorough enough. But this is Parliament for you. There are mice everywhere. Luckily, I'm not scared of mice. I'm not scared of rodents. I know how to deal with them.
Kemi Badenoch, Conservative leader, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
It is astonishing if you ever go to that house. You'll know this far better than me, but even the few times I've been there, you can just stand around and if you just sit in a room for long enough, there'll just be these scurrying little grey presences just bombing all over the place.
Yeah, they're all over.
You asked about George Osborne, which is interesting. A couple of people got in touch about that, and she said she never vetted George Osborne, but of course, Mandelson was photographed relieving himself.
He was.
On a tree outside George Osborne's house. So the notion that the circles which a certain type of person moves are there to all be seen. People know each other. That's what people talk about, this sort of elite, this sort of political elite, this sort of web, which the Times sort of tries to plot as well. But yeah,
it's a really good visual map this morning in the Times.
And if you want to know why it's so hard for Keir Starmer to face a leadership challenge, you will see that very, very, very many of the prominent people in the Labour Party are connected pretty closely to Peter Mandelson.
Yeah.